Tension erupts in Congress as Deborah Ross confronts Kash Patel over documents alleging an FBI purge. The receipts are intense, the accusations explosive, and the stakes could not be higher.
At your confirmation hearing in January, you said under oath, and I quote, "There will be no politicization at the FBI. There will be no retributive actions taken by the FBI should I be confirmed." And in your written response to the Senate questionnaire, you said, I quote, "Personnel decisions shall be based on performance and adherence to the law. And every FBI employee will be held to the absolute same standard, and no one will be terminated for case assignments." So I want to just go through a couple of scenarios with you to get a sense of whether you think these are examples of politicization of the FBI or making decisions based on the performance and adherence to the law. So, first question. Would hiring FBI agents, analysts, and supervisors from only one political party being politicization of the FBI or making personnel decisions based on performance and adherence to the law?
We don't ask FBI people, applicants, where their political parties are.
Mr. Patel, do you ask FBI applicants who they voted for?
The FBI does not.
Are you aware that in the lawsuit that Mr. Driscoll filed against you and the FBI, he was asked who he voted for?
Since that lawsuit has been filed and it's ongoing litigation, I'm not able to comment.
Well, but it also means that you just said that what happened in his situation didn't happen. So we will go on to the next question. Let me ask you an even easier one. Does firing agents for working on the cases that they were assigned to and that the president didn't like, is that politicization of the FBI or making personnel decisions based on performance and adherence to the law?
The FBI doesn't terminate anyone based on case assignments alone.
Has the FBI ever been sued by somebody who felt that they were terminated based on case assignments?
In the entire history of the FBI, I'm sure they have.
No, since your tenure.
I'm sure there's ongoing litigation.
Yes. In fact, there is ongoing litigation. And in fact, people have been asked who they voted for. And in fact, you are running an FBI for the President of the United States rather than the people of the United States, because my questions were not hypotheticals. They are the things you have done during your tenure. And according to a lawsuit filed last week by long-term FBI agents, you fired former acting director Brian Driscoll. He had served with the Bureau for nearly 20 years, earned a Medal of Honor, Medal of Valor for bravery during the dangerous ISIS raid, and had a wealth of crisis response experience and led the FBI's critical incident response group. When the Trump administrations interviewed Mr. Driscoll for that role, they interrogated him about his political leanings and who he voted for in the last 5 elections. Questions Mr. Driscoll refused to answer because those types of questions impermissibly politicized the FBI. You also fired Steve Jensen, who served the FBI for nearly 2 decades and ran critical terrorism, counterintelligence, and organized crime operations, whom you once described as embodying what the American public demands of the FBI. But he was fired because he took part in investigating crimes committed on January 6th. And Trump's MAGA base lambasted you online for keeping him at the FBI. So he's no longer at the FBI. You also fired a decorated combat veteran with decades of experience in the Bureau, Special Agent Walter Jardia, because he worked on the investigation into the Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election and helped investigate Trump's ally, Peter Navarro. Director Patel, it is very clear that you have flunked your own test. You've put saving your job, which I actually believe you were being honest about during your confirmation hearings, over doing what's right for the FBI and the American people. That is not adherence to the law. Thank you, and I yield back.
In today's video, we're diving into a political firestorm that is dominating headlines. Congresswoman Deborah Ross publicly confronting former Trump administration official Kash Patel, accusing him of orchestrating what she calls a planned FBI purge. These claims surfaced during a highly charged congressional hearing, and according to Ross, the receipts are not just concerning, they are brutal. The hearing was part of an ongoing investigation into alleged efforts to reshape U.S. intelligence agencies for political purposes during and after the Trump presidency. What makes this moment so explosive is not just what Ross said, but the documentation and internal messages she presented, suggesting there was a strategy to identify and remove certain FBI and Justice Department officials. Whether you view this as a legitimate investigation or a political battle, the hearing has opened the door to a deeper question. Was there an attempt to purge the FBI of individuals who were not considered loyal? During the hearing, Ross wasted no time going on the offensive. She held up printed emails and memos that she said came directly from Patel's communications. In her remarks, Ross stated that these documents outlined a blueprint for removing senior officials at the FBI, specifically targeting those who resisted political interference. Her tone was sharp, controlled, and unwavering. She reminded the committee and the viewers that law enforcement agencies must remain independent, not tools for political revenge. Ross then looked directly at Patel and said, "You called this a reformation. I call it a purge." The room went silent. For a moment, everyone was watching to see how Patel would respond. Kash Patel, known by many as a loyal Trump insider and key intelligence figure during the final years of the administration, pushed back. Patel argued that the FBI leadership at the time was biased and resistant to oversight. According to him, the goal was to remove corruption and root out what he described as politically motivated actors abusing their power. Patel insisted that he never intended to dismantle the agency. Instead, he framed it as reform and internal cleanup designed to restore public trust. But Ross wasn't buying it. She pointed to additional internal communications where Patel allegedly described certain officials as obstacles and expressed urgency in replacing them. Ross's questioning raised serious concerns. What she highlighted wasn't just disagreement over strategy, it was whether an entire federal agency could be pushed toward political loyalty. She repeatedly returned to the same point. Intelligence institutions exist to protect national security, not political agendas. Ross also emphasized that any attempt to remove people based on loyalty rather than job performance is dangerous for democracy. Her voice grew more intense as she referenced historical examples of attempts to control law enforcement structures. She argued that if political leaders can purge agencies whenever they disagree with them, the rule of law becomes meaningless. The tension escalated when Ross presented what she called the most disturbing receipt. The document hinted at plans to replace career officials with individuals considered aligned. She asked Patel directly if that meant aligned with the law or aligned with Trump. Patel tried to shift the focus back to accountability within the agency, suggesting that reforms were necessary to restore transparency. He accused Ross and other Democrats of twisting his intent to score political points. But Ross pushed back harder. She reminded Patel that loyalty to the Constitution should always outweigh loyalty to any person or party. Viewers watching this exchange could see that this was more than just political sparring. It represented two fundamentally different visions of how government institutions should operate. On one side, Ross presented the fight as a defense of democratic integrity and institutional independence. On the other, Patel described himself as trying to correct what he believes was corruption and bias inside the FBI. The clash revealed a larger question hanging over American politics today. When officials say they want to clean up institutions, do they mean reform or control? The reaction across social media was immediate. Clips of the hearing went viral, with users praising Ross for dropping receipts and confronting what they called a dangerous plan to politicize the FBI. At the same time, Patel gained support from those who believe the intelligence community has too much power and lacks accountability. Comment sections were flooded with arguments defending and attacking both sides. While some viewers felt Ross was exposing an attempted abuse of power, others claimed Patel was simply challenging an agency that has made serious missteps in recent years. Regardless of political beliefs, the hearing delivered a message: transparency matters. When Americans hear that powerful political figures may have discussed removing FBI officials based on loyalty tests, it shakes public confidence. Ross emphasized that this is not a partisan issue but a foundational principle. Institutions like the FBI are supposed to serve the law, not a president, not Congress, and not a political agenda. As the hearing wrapped, Ross had one final remark that echoed across the chamber.